Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, he has been here before, and I love talking to him. He's the host of Reform This, a video series. You got to check this out. He's an author, Battle for Soul of Islam, and president of American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Hello, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. How you been?
Great. It's good to be with you, Tron.
Right back at you, man. You bet. I wanted to ask you, first of all, I'm seeing all these stories, by the way. Louis Farrakhan and, the Nation of Islam. And we got Keith Ellison. We got Maxine Waters. I need your take on this Farrakhan fellow. And how can you differentiate him from, normal American people who believe in Islam?
Well, Farrakhan is not only a separatist. I mean, the Nation of Islam itself is named after separatist movement. They believe they're a nation within the nation. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, he's a virulent anti-Semite. And Keith Ellison was his spokesperson for a number of years and then claimed to disavow himself from them. They're not even really mainstream Muslims. The Nation of Islam is a heterodox sort of identity movement. They've sprouted things like the Black Panthers and other more militant movements, Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims, the global Muslim faith, if you will. Many of the former Nation of Islam folks then became Sunni Muslims and came to the fold, like Keith Ellison and others that report to be Sunni Muslims. But it's really more sort of an American historical identity movement is what Louis Farrakhan leads, and it's virulently anti-Semitic.
It really is. I mean, you talk about bigoted hate. It's unbelievable. And by the way, the Sharia law situation, how does that play into the Farrakhan mindset?
Well, the interesting thing is even their Quran has no Arabic in it. It's English, if you will. So they basically follow hook, line, and sinker the Wahhabi interpretation of what is and what is not Sharia. Now, they don't even really have, if you look at their services, a understanding of what the Sharia movement is globally. So they're sort of marginal in the major threat to American security when you look at a global level, which is the Sharia coming out of Saudi Arabia, out of Iran, out of Egypt's Al-Azhar, etc. So that's really, Nation of Islam is more of an American phenomenon versus the global real threat that creates the ISIS's, Al-Qaeda's, the Muslim Brotherhoods of the world, which is a very different phenomenon.
This video series that you have up there, first of all, it's out there now called Reform This, exclamation point. Tell me a little bit about it, Doctor.
Started as a podcast with Blaze Radio, and since then we've started to take clippets of it. I have a weekly podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, but we have clippets of little topics that I'll address. Like, for example, my latest one is about why we should have a commission on radical Islam, how we need a whole-of-government approach, not only domestically on counterterrorism, but globally as far as foreign policy and the Pentagon, defense policy, all of which, just like in the Cold War, we approach not only Soviet threat but communist threat. In my video series and podcast, I talk about why we should have a whole of government, all of media, all of academia approach to where we say we're not only countering violence or extremism, we're countering the ideology of political Islam. And Muslims in our reform movement, which is why I call it Reform This with an exclamation point, you're not going to get to national security and a more peaceful world against the major threat unless you deal with the root cause, which is a pre-modern theocratic Islam that needs to go through sort of an Americanization and the marginalization of theocrats.
I was reminded by one of your staff members, President Trump promised during the campaign the establishment of a commission on radical Islam. We needed that yesterday. I like that, the way that's put. We needed that yesterday. And yes, we could see a transition from the pointless and undefinable CVE countering violent extremism to CVI countering violent Islamism. So we've got people out there that do want to take out the bad guys. We also know that Donald Trump, the administration, our military has been doing that. In this past year, we've actually made some serious tracks, haven't we, Doctor?
We really have, and we really have. And there's an old Arabic saying that when you point to the moon, the idiot looks at the finger. And there's always whether it's gun shootings or whatever it might be, we often we're looking at the symptoms instead of the primary pathology. And whether it's the Pulse Club shooting in Orlando or the New York attacks or whatever it might be, we continue now, 17 years post 9/11, we have not looked at the primary root cause, which is why we have this whack-a-mole program. And if you sit a commission in which you have Muslims, think tanks, security folks beginning to focus on the root cause, we can begin maybe in this generation to start to peel away the levels of security problems that we have culturally, security-wise, and strategically as we look forward into a whole-of-government approach.
You know, it's true. And by the way, as a conservative, as an American Christian, I look at what's going on. I see where the terror is coming from. It's coming from these people out there that are militant, and yes, they're ISIS, and they fly the Islamic flag. They do this and the other thing. The problem is, and you and I have talked about this before, more people need to stand up against this, whether it be a bastardization of the religion itself or whatever the case. Too many people are sitting this one out. And look, you're out there, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, you're out there on the front line saying, "Hey, wake up! If you know, these people are they're killing other people. What are you going to do about it? You got to speak out." Correct?
Oh yeah, and we need to stop holding Muslims and other countries to different standards than we do ourselves. We have this bigotry of low expectations, and we deal with Muslims with a different standard when we're talking to Saudis or Iranians. And yet the Iranian people, for example, in the last month, the Iranians have been having a revolution against their theocrats.
Yeah, hello.
There have been some companies in Los Angeles and elsewhere trying to help them, but it's been off the radar. And if you want the best anti-nuclear program in Iran, it is actually the regime change with the anti-theocrats screaming in the streets, women in the streets saying, "We care about more what's in our head, not what's around it," like the government does with the hijab. So unfortunately, we're not looking at major shifts culturally happening. We're sort of asleep.
Exactly right, and that's the engagement factor. We talk about a lot of. We talk about being engaged in the financial aspect of our country and engaged in our military, understanding things. People have to get engaged, and there's so many people out there that fall for the leftist lines. You know, and it's sad. And you try to talk to some of these people, Dr. Jasser, and you know it. It's like talking to a wall sometimes. These people need to be shaken up. Look at the facts. These are facts. These are facts. You know, and it's hard to plant the seed, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. And unfortunately, we need...
Come back to me. I'm losing you.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, we need tough love when it comes to dealing with Muslims. It seems like all of a sudden now the left has become tough with the Russians while they weren't when Secretary Clinton was there, and they're becoming tough with North Korea, except maybe now in the Olympics, as we see with the bizarre media coverage of Kim Jong-un's sister.
Oh, my gosh.
And yet, where's the tough coverage of Muslim theocrats domestically and globally from Saudi Arabia to Iran? It's just this bizarre hypocrisy that makes no sense.
And that's why this video series is going to be a lot of help. Reform This, by the way, put together by our friend Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. And, of course, he's a doctor, he's a dad, he's a husband. And, by the way, U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander, you are retired, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Served 11 years, was... in Somalia, also at the Bethesda Naval Hospital. My last tour was as a physician to Congress.
Outstanding. Thank you for your service. Thanks for writing the book. Thanks for putting the video series out. And where do we go to see it?
At iTunes at Reform This, and our YouTube page for the video series is AIFD TV. AIFD as in Democracy TV.
Hey, man, you're welcome anytime. Be safe out there. I really appreciate you.
God bless. Thanks, Trump.
God bless you. There he goes. We're coming right back with your calls on 740 KVOR.